I got it. Okay.
All right, everyone, we are going to get started. And there's pizza and wine, so please help yourselves if you're hungry or thirsty. And maybe the lights will come up, or maybe I'll just squint. Thank you for coming. My name is Simonelli from Dream Homes, and this is our really famous rebuilding seminar. We've been having this seminar now for about 4 years. We do it as a service to the community to try and help people with their rebuilding needs. This is not a sales presentation. We're here to try and inform you and help you. And we think that rebuilding is very confusing. We get a lot of conflicting information, and so we try and just put some of that to rest and explain how the process is going to work for you. Tonight we have a couple of speakers. We have Kathleen Dotoli, who is an attorney in Toms River. Kathy specializes in workers' comp and social security, and she does a very good consumer protection piece that tells you how to avoid getting ripped off by contractors, which is a big issue in this industry. We also have Jason from House Lifters. And Dream Homes work together on the majority of our lifts. We've done a tremendous amount of work together, and Jason will talk a little bit about house lifting and what to expect from that. All right, so we're here tonight, and I just like to. There's a brief agenda in your folder if you want to follow. If not, that's fine. The first, why are we lifting our houses? Well, we're lifting our houses for 3 reasons. One of them is flood risk. We don't want to be at risk anymore for our house being flooded and losing the lower level of the house. So that's a very important consideration. The second one is flood insurance. Your flood insurance rates will increase drastically if you are at or below base flood. So we want to be at least base flood plus 3. So if you were in a normal house, let's say a 1,500 square foot house at the beach, and you were at elevation 6, and they changed the elevation to be base flood of 8, now your floor is 2 feet below base flood. So now your flood insurance, which was $800 a month, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a year. Sorry, $800 a year to $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So that's something that will affect the affordability and also affect your ability to sell the house. So that's why we're lifting. And then finally, if we don't lift our houses, forgetting about the flood risk itself and forgetting about the fact that you have flood insurance rates that will increase drastically, if we don't lift, you can't sell or mortgage your house. So you're in a situation where if you go to sell your house, if your house is worth $400,000, a buyer comes in and says, great, your house is beautiful, I'd like to buy it for $400,000. However, I need to lift your house. I will need to lift the house when I buy it, so I'm going to take $100,000 off the price. So that's why you're doing this. That's why we're having the conversation. That's why you're considering it. It's not something anybody wants to do. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, wow, I'd love to space my house. No one has ever done that, and nobody ever will. But after Storm Sandy in 2012, there are over 35,000 houses along the Jersey Shore that have to either be raised or demolished and new homes be built above the floodplain. So we do a number of them. Dream Homes has done over 200 elevations since Sandy. Jason, I believe, has done 500 or 600 house lifts. 1,500. Okay, so 500 or 600 or 1,500 house lifts. And he's also active now in Texas as well. All right. Well, just a brief bit about us. Dream Homes is a publicly traded company. We are fully audited. We're the only public company doing house lifts in New Jersey, elevation projects. We do custom homes, we do new homes that are custom modular, and Lou would say a few words about that. and we also do elevation work of all types, and Joe will say a few words about that also. All right, what I'd like to do first is I'd like to bring Kathy up and let her say a few words about some consumer protection ideas that might be helpful for you.
Thank you.
Kathy.
Thank you. Hi everybody, Kathleen Dotoli. I'm an attorney here in Toms River. I have a workers' compensation and social security disability practice. But the reason I'm here tonight is because you're my neighbors. You're part of our community. Our family was affected by Sandy. We had a house in Ocean Beach which was destroyed. Vince was our builder. He got it, the project very turnkey, right on track, and we were very happy with how the whole thing worked out. That all being said, I deal with insurance companies all the time, so I know that they can, sometimes you're left at a disadvantage when you don't understand what the process is and how it can all go. A couple of, what's happened in the past couple of months has been really just astounding, devastating. What's happened in Texas and Florida, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. If that doesn't give you enough impetus to get on get on track with raising your house and protecting yourself in the future, I don't know what will. Going forward, to think that a storm like Sandy isn't going to happen again here in the New Jersey or the tri-state area, subject to storm surges, I think would be a very prudent way of thinking. So I think the time is really now for so many people. That being said, and I think we've been lucky too the past couple of years. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had another storm that was as devastating as that. I think they're going to get worse. So that all being said, moving on to how to start this process. Whether you have grant money or insurance company or you're reaching into your own personal funds, one of the things that you really must do is choose a reputable contractor. And that's something I'd like you to, some of these things I'm going to talk about tonight, I'd like you to consider going forward. First off, many people have dealt with contractors in the past. Maybe somebody did a reno of your kitchen, your bathroom, installed a deck. That's probably not the person that you want to entertain to do your home lift or rebuild. That is not that contractor maybe wasn't a terrific deck builder or kitchen remodeler, but everybody out there is looking for work, and you need to go with someone who has the experience and the insurance, the crew, the expertise to carry this project through from start to finish. I know you've all read in the newspapers, the Asbury Park Press, some of the national newspapers even, that these projects can go awry very quickly when a contractor is either underfunded or they simply don't have the experience or the personnel to carry these projects through from start to finish. So make sure that when you're choosing your contract, you take a couple of things into consideration. One is, what is their experience? Have they built new homes? Ask for the addresses of those homes. Ask for a list of clients that they've worked with. Don't be afraid to call those people. It's so important to follow through. Getting the information is not enough. You need to make those phone calls and find out and drive by either the communities or the individual homes that this individual purports to have started from start to finish. There's nothing wrong with calling these individuals and asking, hey, do you have a personal relationship with this person? Is it a relative? Is this your brother? Who is it that I'm actually talking to? How did you get referred to this company? So ask those questions, because you want to protect yourself and make sure you know who you're talking to also. Another thing is you want to visit the office of the individual. The company should look like a busy office. It shouldn't look like an empty shell of an office. It should look like there are people, looks like people are there working. We want people, we want to see that there are computers and fax machines and papers, and we want to see activity in those offices. We're not interested in hiring people that have a shell office. Maybe they're from Louisiana or another state, or maybe they're working out of their basement. Nothing wrong with a home office, but you want to make sure it looks like a busy office, and they're not just waiting to get your deposit check, and you're the only customer that they're working with, or a handful. So make sure you see a busy office. Make sure that they have a real mailing address. You don't want to deal with somebody who you can't get in touch with in the event that you can't reach them via telephone or email. You want to be able to send mail to that address. You want to be able to send certified mail if necessary. And a P.O. box is actually not good enough. You want to be able to see a physical location, go there, drive by, visit the office, say hello, and make sure that this person is accessible. You want to make sure that they're accessible during business hours. So if you stop in, you want to be able to go there. Make an appointment for 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, and make sure that that company is there and it's available and the lights are on. So all important things. You want to make sure you ask about insurance. Insurances are very important. You want to ask that your contractor has workers' comp insurance, so that if an injury occurs on the workplace, you have no responsibility, you're good, there's no liability there for you. You want to make sure that there is general liability insurance in case somebody gets hurt on the work site, a neighbor, a kid. These houses up in the air, they're attractive nuisances, and they can attract neighborhood kids and people walking around, and ooh, look at that, how's that going? Oops, next thing you know. So ask about insurances. Again, not enough just to have that individual give you a copy of the policy. You can call the insurance company itself and say, hey, is this policy still in effect? I'm looking at a declaration page, but I just want to make sure. So you want to make sure that not only you're getting the policy number, but also making sure that the policy is in effect when your job's about to start. Another thing is cargo insurance is necessary when the house is up in the air. That's generally the responsibility of the lifter. In this case, it would be your responsibility, right? To make sure that insurance is good for when the house is lifting. And again, same thing holds true. You want to ask for that policy, and you can certainly call to make sure that it is in effect. When you're looking at your contract, assuming you're about to sign off on the contract, you want to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples. So if you have a couple of estimates, you're looking at a few estimates, you want to make sure, and there's a difference in price, perhaps. You want to make sure that the contract that you're looking at includes everything. Let's say the one that has the higher price, you can't quite identify what's higher about this one versus another one. Make sure everything is in there. The decks that you want, the permitting. The permitting itself, Vince will tell you, can cost thousands of dollars on every project. There's a demolition permit, there's a build permit, there's all types of inspections that need to take place. And you just want to make sure that all that permitting is, again, apples to apples, making sure that the permit costs are in there too, so you know that you're looking at the same itemization of costs. Some of this, I think you probably know all of this. You don't sign a blank contract. You don't let somebody say, okay, no, we'll fill that in later. You don't hand over cash to people that work for you in this regard. Again, we're not talking about fixing a sidewalk real quick, or something that only costs a couple of $100. You might be used to paying a little cash for stuff like this. In this case, everything you have to keep a good trail in the event that there are issues later on. Also talk about down payments. What's a reasonable down payment? A lot of the companies that you read about a lot of the homeowners gave very, very large down payments to start the work. And when the job went south, so did their money. And it was hard to recoup that. So make sure you're not giving, like, especially on the first signature on a contract, you don't want to be giving more than what you say, that's $5,000?
We say 5%.
About 5%?
No
Okay.
more than 5%.
Okay. And that may not, I don't know if that seems like a lot of money to you or not a lot of money, but when you consider that this is a very large project, you want to keep, you want to keep a schedule of costs going forward. You also have to understand, it is your responsibility to keep up with the payment schedule. You can't expect your contractor to be doing work well beyond what you haven't even paid for yet. So if you had a demolition cost, demolition happened, it got paid, didn't get paid for yet, the foundation goes in, inspections are taking place, the framing is, you have to make those payments on time, because in order to keep your project moving forward, the payment schedule must be adhered to on your end too. And speaking of, the homeowner's, I think, responsibility here is, I've been hearing through the grapevine that there are a lot of issues, and this again goes to your personal responsibility, that there have been issues with people holding back large sums of money towards the end of the project when maybe there's only a couple of small items that need to be completed. That is bad business. It's improper. It could be, if this is a REM job, it could be construed as fraud. So you want to keep track of all of those payments that you are responsible to make. An example of what I was just talking about would be like, let's say you owed $35,000 left on your contract, but you're unhappy with a bit of trim, and you want that contractor to come back. You can't hold that sum of money hostage if it's just, minor items that are being held up. So do keep that in mind. Don't piecemeal your work. That's probably a bad idea when you consider that if you hire a general contractor to do the lift, the foundation, the roof, the windows, the interior work, don't cheap out at the last minute and say, oh, I'm gonna have my brother-in-law do the windows, or why? Because even though you might save a little bit of money now, who's gonna guarantee all of that work? As an attorney, I can tell you that there are lots of cases where people are pointing the fingers at each other. If you have your brother-in-law install those windows, why would you expect the general contractor to guarantee and warranty things like, if there's a leak? Everybody's going to be saying, oh, no, it was his job, it was his job, it was their job, and the next thing you know, you're paying out of pocket to get those things fixed. So, there's a little bit more, but I think I covered pretty much everything. Does anybody have any questions? We good? Okay, thank you. Wait, sure.
Thank you, Kathy. Just to touch on a couple, elaborate on a couple of points that Kathy made. The deposit, the amount of deposit is an item that we speak about a lot. And the reason we speak about it a lot is because over the last 4 years, we've done probably close to 20% of our work for what we call rescues. And rescues are houses where a contractor has either stopped because they don't know what they're doing, taken money and left the state, front-loaded the project and can't finish it, ran out of money. And we step in and we're one of the few companies that will work on a project that has been abandoned by another contractor. So for the last 4 years I've been writing this blog about rebuilding, and one of the most consistent issues has been how to avoid this situation. And one of the easiest ways to avoid this situation is do not give a deposit greater than 5%, and do not pay for things that are not complete. So it seems we're all standing here and everybody's thinking, okay, well that's pretty common sense, but sometimes in the heat of it, you forget these things, and sometimes you listen to a contractor saying, look, I just need a deposit and I can put your pilings in, or I can start your house and whatnot. It doesn't work like that. You need to work with a company that's funded well enough where there's a payment schedule, they do your foundation, they get it inspected and passed, they pay for it, and then they call you and send you an invoice and say, listen, can you send me a check? That's how it works. So Kathy's point about the deposit leads into so many other things, but that's one of the easiest ways to protect yourself. And we don't want ever to do work where somebody has been defrauded. It gives everyone a bad name. I've been building in New Jersey since 1993, and we've done 1,700 new homes. We've done several hundred elevation projects, and I'm proud to be a professional, and it's not good for anyone when a contractor defrauds a homeowner. So that's why we spend more on consumer protection, believe it or not, than we do on construction signs. Also, in your folder on the left side, there is a handout that is kind of a summary of what Kathy just talked about. It says tips for dealing with contractors. It's just a useful thing to take home with you. Another item that Kathy touched on was general contracting a project yourself. You know, unless you're an engineer or an architect, unless you have many years of general contracting and construction experience, it's really not a good idea. It's difficult. It's one thing to remodel a kitchen or build a deck, like Kathy said, but it's another thing to do an elevation project. It's very complicated. It's 20 times more complicated than building a new home. So it's not something that we recommend. People do it, and it usually never works out well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how high we should go and what type of foundation system we want to look at, and how do we treat the bottoms of our houses, because those are important points. Well, the first thing is, we want to go no less than base flood plus 3 feet. And the reason is, FEMA has still not finalized the flood elevation. Still, it's 4.5 years, and every year they say, yes, we'll do that next year. Yes, it's going to be in the fall, and yes, it's going to be in the spring, and it's all nonsense. If you go to state minimum, which is base flood plus 1, and FEMA changes your flood elevation, now you may have to lift your house again to be in compliance. So we say at least base flood plus 3. Now, that being said, the choice is, do you wish to have a full height elevation where you can park underneath and create some space underneath, or do you just want to lift high enough so you can get the lowest flood insurance rates? Well, base flood plus 3 gives you the lowest flood insurance rates right now in the market. But generally, base flood plus 3 will give you a crawl space that's 4 feet or 4.5 feet. Yes, you can store things there. Yes, your house will be safe, but you're not really adding any value. So what the real question is what is the cost benefit to elevating your house where you create more space, possibly create a garage or a basement? That's the question. That's always the question. What is the cost benefit? How much is it costing you, and how much of a benefit are you deriving both immediately and in the future for resale value? So one of the most cost-effective and intelligent improvements to make for cost benefit is to lift to a full height elevation. Now, that being said, once you lift to a full height elevation, you can do a number of things. You can leave the entire foundation open if you're building on pilings. You can leave the foundation open, and you can simply drive into the house. You can enclose all or part of the foundation, and you can create a storage area or a basement or a partial garage. Now, just to establish what is allowed and what is not allowed beneath the floodplain. Beneath base flood, according to FEMA, you're allowed to do 3 things. You can park. You can have an entry, meaning you can have an enclosed foyer with a stairway up to the first floor. And you can also store non-essential items. You can't have any mechanicals below the base flood, but you can put things there that it doesn't really matter to you if you lose them in the flood. So, that being said, everything that is on your lower level, if you elevate your house, whether it's on concrete or on timber pilings, you elevate your house, everything below base flood has to be waterproof. It has to be a cement board, has not water resistant, but waterproof. So we can enclose downstairs, we can put a concrete floor downstairs, we can create garages downstairs, we can create rooms downstairs, we can't create bedrooms. And we can store things. Now what most people do in real life is they lift their house and they say, oh, this is great, I just created a basement and now the kids have somewhere to go and I can get rid of them. And everybody makes that additional living space. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have an opening into your basement that is larger than 3 feet wide, meaning if you have a garage door, you have to do a double layer of 5 sheetrock on the ceiling. So if you lift your house and it's on pilings and it's wide open and you can drive underneath, that means you need double 5/8 on the ceiling. If you lift your house and you enclose the entire downstairs and all you have is a sliding glass door in the back and a single passage door in the front, you do not have to sheetrock your ceiling. So that's something to consider. Because sheetrock is expensive, that's a way you can save money. It's something you can do later. You can do a garage, a single car garage, leave the rest open, sheetrock or not, the garage has to be sheetrock. So when you're considering how high to go for your elevation, keep in mind that if you do go a few extra feet, maybe base flood plus 3 puts you at 5 feet above grade, but base flood plus 7 would give you a garage. So now really, what are we talking about? We're talking about if it's pilings, a little bit more length of pilings, not a big deal. A few extra stairs, front and back, again, not a big deal. The sheetrock is probably one of the more costly things, but let's look at the benefits. Now you have either covered parking or enclosed parking. You created a garage, you created nice storage space. You can't call it living space. If you get an appraisal, they're not going to appraise it as living space. However, when you go to sell a house, there's a lot of resale value to that space. So, just a word to the wise in terms of that. We're constantly doing estimates and consulting with people, unlike a lot of other contractors. We don't try and sell you any one thing. We don't say, oh, we have a modular division, buy a modular home, or we can elevate your home, or we can build you a custom home. We'll evaluate your project and we'll say, okay, this seems to be the most cost-effective solution, and we'll listen to what your needs are, and we'll go from there. We're constantly looking at what is the cost benefit. Does it make sense to do a new deck in your backyard that's composite and vinyl rail? Absolutely, because you're getting all that money back when you sell. Does it make sense to put tile in your house? Sure, as long as the tile is $2 a square foot. When you spend $35 a square foot on Italian marble, nobody cares about that but you, so you have to love it. If you do a new kitchen, is that cost effective? Is that a good cost benefit equation? Absolutely. The best thing you could spend money on is that new kitchen and that new bathroom. That being said, we do kitchens from $10,000 to $60,000. Is a $10,000 kitchen a great investment? Fantastic. Is a $40,000 kitchen a great investment? You better love that kitchen. You better love it because when you go to sell the house, the person that's buying it is not giving you an extra $30,000 for that house. So that's why we talk a lot about what you're paying for and what you're getting. So the most cost-effective things are once we say, okay, we're lifting to base flood plus 3. Now we have the lowest flood insurance rates. Okay, well then, now let's talk about what is the difference between base flood plus 3 and base flood plus 6, and you create that downstairs. Great value for your money. What is the difference between just lifting your old deck or leaving it in place and building stairs down to your old deck and knocking it down and building a new deck, getting all your money back? Why are these things worth money? Well, they're worth money because they improve your quality of life right now, of course, but you'll get your money back when you go to sell. So just a word on that.
So can I ask you a question? Is it a good idea or a bad idea? Like if you have a certain budget and it's always been your dream to have granite countertops and an upgraded kitchen floor and good, the best appliances, but it means it's going to cost so much more while doing this renovation. When is the right time to make those upgrades? Before, at the time of the rebuild, or years later when you're done?
Well, a lot of that has to do with budget. There are some things that can easily be done afterwards and they don't affect your project at all. If your budget's constrained and you at least elevate your house so you have full height under the house, well, all of the other things that I described can be done later. You can always pour a slab under your house. You can start with stone, like thousands of houses at the shore have. You can always pour a slab. You can always enclose the downstairs later. You can always put a garage in later. All of these things can be done later. So if your budget is $100,000 and your wish list is $130,000, well, elevate the house, get in, live there, and then you can do it in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years.
So on that same note, what are some things that would cause someone to go over budget?
Well, just continue on with when certain improvements should be made. If it's an interior improvement and you're elevating your home, it makes a tremendous amount of sense to do it prior to or during an elevation project. You don't want to necessarily, unless you don't have the money, but you don't necessarily want to be ripping out a kitchen and bathroom. The house is going to be up in the air, and you're going to be in a construction project for a few months. So while you're in that stage, is it nicer to have your kitchen done and your bathroom done so you don't have to deal with it being inconvenience later? Absolutely. That having been said, if you don't have the money, you can always get a kitchen or a bathroom later. Given our choice, what is the best thing to do? Well, the best thing to do is elevate the house first and then renovate the interior. That doesn't happen sometimes. Sometimes people renovate after the storm. We've done dozens like that, where people say, I'm not going to elevate. So then they renovate their entire house. And then they get their flood insurance bill. And their flood insurance quadrupled. So then all of a sudden this, I don't care what anybody says, I'm not going to elevate becomes, wait a minute, it's costing me $400 a month for flood insurance. And now I have to elevate. So, ideally you want to do your elevation first, and then you want to do your interior. That's my. However, that being said, in order of importance or priority or value to a homeowner, the most important thing, I would say, in our experience is, let's get that full